Washington football team quarterback Alex Smith with some explosive comments at the franchise this week. Smith saying the team did not initially want him back after his devastating leg injury and were reluctant to give him a fair shot at the job when he was ready. Head coach Ron Rivera adding fuel to those simmering embers in Week 17 when he was asked about whether the team would be in a playoff position without the play of Smith. Rivera saying the team would likely be in the same position if Kyle Allen was their quarterback. Allen was, of course, injured and out. Smith completed 66.7% of his passes for 1,582 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions in 8 games played in 2020. More importantly for the football team, he was an impressive 5-1 as the starter, and he handed them their first NFC East title since 2015. The team lost their wildcard game to the eventual Super Bowl champions from Tampa Bay. Now the question is, what does the team do? They can save close to $15 million in cap space if they cut their quarterback, as you take a look at the season in review. 4 different quarterbacks playing for them last season. Welcome into the Friday edition of the Football Happy Hour. Jeremy St. Louis, happy to have you along. Our NFL team preview is continuing with the Washington football team. And to help us break things down, let's welcome in CBS Sports senior NFL insider Jonathan Jones alongside CBS Sports NFL writer John Breach. Okay, so J.J. Smith's comments doing nothing more than add his name to the ever-expanding quarterback carousel, it seems, this offseason. If they cut Smith today, Taylor Heinicke or Kyle Allen would be the ones fighting it out for QB1. What do they do here, and who do you have your money on to be the starting quarterback for the football team heading into the 2021 season?
Well, I would have my money on someone that's not on the roster right now. I do not believe that the Washington football team is going to go into week 1 of the 2021 season with Taylor Heinicke or Kyle Allen there as their starting quarterback. They feel very good about the backup quarterback position, and I think that was evidenced by the way that Kyle Allen played down the stretch, and probably, frankly, Dwayne Haskins would have been cut very shortly after being maskless in his private party and doing whatever he was doing if the Washington football team knew that Kyle Allen was going to play the way that he did. So I am anticipating a divorce between Alex Smith and the Washington football team, one that will be handled by Washington extremely delicately. We're talking about the comeback player of the year, a guy who very much gave his leg to the franchise, and so you have to handle it in a very sensitive way. I would go back to how the Jacksonville Jaguars, after Calais Campbell won the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award, ultimately sent him on his way when he became a cap issue for them. So that's sort of the cues that you want to take. Where they go from there, they have a ton of cap room. I know we're going to dive into it. Depends on who's going to ultimately become available or who they would be interested in trading for as a quarterback. But they're going to have the money and the cap space. I just don't believe that their week 1 starter will be any of those 3 guys.
Yeah, and JJ and I are absolutely on the same page here. I do not think that Washington's week 1 starter is on the roster. And obviously the big question here is Alex Smith, and JJ mentioned how Washington's going to have to be sensitive about the announcement when they eventually let him go, because it's highly unlikely they're going to keep him. But you know who threw sensitivity out the window? Alex Smith. I mean, he just, there is obviously a contentious relationship here. He was not happy with the way the season ended in Washington. We had Ron Rivera saying, oh, we probably could have made the playoffs with Kyle Allen. Well, I don't know if Ron Rivera watched any of the games where Kyle Allen played, but I think Washington went 1-4 or 1-5 with Kyle Allen and 5-1 with Alex Smith, just because he's a much more efficient quarterback, but he's clearly not a quarterback that Ron Rivera wants on the roster. So it'd be a total shock if he were still on the team past March 17th, because they'll pick up so much cap room by letting him go. Obviously, they gave that contract, that 2-year extension to Taylor Heinicke, but that was the kind of extension that says, we like you, but not enough to be our starter, because it's paying him under $4.5 million a year. And so I do think this team is absolutely going to bring in a starter with all that cap space they have. And so that person is not on their roster, and we're going to find out who it is soon, though.
For the defense for this team, one of the best in all of football last season. 2nd in least yards allowed, 5th in total sacks, 3rd in terms of the number of first downs they allowed. You saw in the season review graphic, Chase Young had a great first season there with them, 7.5 sacks. Montez Sweat led the team with 9. So defense is not an issue here. Offense, on the other hand, I mean, we just talked about the quarterback position. Breach, give us some free agents that this team could or should target.
Look, Jeremy, I'm going to say it. This has been an absolute bonkers year so far for quarterbacks. We've seen some crazy trades: Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford. So I'm going to throw a free agent kind of crazy idea out there. Why not go after Dak Prescott? Look, you know what? The Cowboys, if they hit him with a non-exclusive tag, that means you can go make an offer, and if he ends up on your team, you give up 2 first-round picks that go to Dallas. Well, you know what you do right away? You weaken the Cowboys. All of a sudden, the Cowboys would be in a situation where they don't have a quarterback. They have to go out and find someone to play for them in 2021. So as crazy as it sounds, and I think it would be smart to go after Dak Prescott. Now, on a more realistic scenario, one person I really like for Washington is Ryan Fitzpatrick. We've seen what he can do. He'll go in there. He'll help younger quarterbacks. So you need that because you have your Taylor Heineke, you have your Kyle Allen on the roster. But he's also good enough to get you some wins. And it feels like Washington, they went 7-9. They made the playoffs with a disastrous quarterback situation where they had 4 guys starting during the year. If they could just get some continuity at the position, this feels like it could be a 9 or 10 win team. So I think if they could figure out the quarterback position, they wouldn't just be competing to win the NFC East. I think they could compete to win the entire NFC. That's what I would do. I look at a quarterback, obviously any parts on that offense. Re-signing Brandon Scherff would be huge, whether that's giving him the franchise tag again or getting him extended, and also getting some receiving help in there. You know, obviously they have Terry McLaurin. They don't need to do anything huge, but if you get one of those mid-tier guys, like, say, Marvin Jones or Will Fuller, I think that would help out that offense tremendously and maybe make it almost as good as their defense.
Yeah, if they get Dak Prescott, this is a mind-blown emoji here. That would be amazing. I can't imagine the Dallas Cowboys not slapping the exclusive franchise tag on Dak Prescott, because a team like Washington would absolutely run to the window and say, you can have my 2 first-round picks. Yeah, we'll pay him, and he can come on over here. I wasn't entirely sure where to go with the quarterback situation because I don't know who all is ultimately going to be available. I think that we still have probably a week or 2 before we really figure out, is Russell Wilson actually going to be traded? Will Houston pick up the phone? You see my list here, and it's not a very lengthy one, but I'm looking at realities. Do you want to go after a Jameis Winston? Because I don't know if the New Orleans Saints will be able to retain him. Some team will be able to pay him more than the Saints will. Teddy Bridgewater, we know that Marty Herney very much believed in Teddy Bridgewater when he was the general manager of the Carolina Panthers. Now he's in the front office in Washington, and Carolina absolutely wants to get rid of Teddy Bridgewater, and he can be had for probably pretty cheap. You look elsewhere, and John mentioned the wide receivers. I mentioned Kenny Golladay and Juju Smith-Schuster. I very much believe in Terry McLaurin up there. What he did this past season, you can combine all the other wide receivers on the roster, and it essentially equals them in terms of receptions and receiving yards. He needs somebody else over there. Love you, Cam Sims and Steven Sims. That's not going to do it. You got to find somebody else. You need to spend for it. And then I look at linebacker. That's going to be a place where if they don't re-sign Kevin Pierre-Louis or Reuben Foster, they're going to need a linebacker. KJ Wright has priced himself out of Seattle. And so maybe you can get him over to Washington as that outside backer. And then, yeah, I'd have to imagine that they're going to re-sign Brandon Scherff if they don't just franchise tag him. Need to go ahead and give him the deal that the Philadelphia Eagles gave Brandon Brooks. If you want to throw a little bit more onto that 4-year, I think $54 million deal, then so be it. But he's your guy there at guard, and you need to pay him as such. And then also, I like their corner situation. You re-sign Ronald Darby to keep him opposite Kendall Fuller. This is a pretty solid team that I think can absolutely, once again, compete for the division after a year where we weren't really anticipating they were going to do so.
Yeah, and I mean, $42 million in cap space. So, I mean, they've got the money to do some shopping in this division. And to your point, JJ, they're a team that could certainly, win another division title. They are the defending NFC East champions. When you look at the rest of the division, I mean, as you said, they should be in the mix again. So, JJ, what are your early expectations for this team right now?
Well, their defense is going to carry them. And because of that, you have to believe that they are in the top half of the NFC East. I think as we're projecting this NFC East, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, and all right, no one's going to put them at the top. And the Giants made some steps, but didn't really take the steps that you really wanted them to take there after Thanksgiving, at least not to my liking. And so I have it as Dallas and Washington, and I have Washington up there again because of the defense. It's going to come down to the quarterback position. Can you score more points than a healthy Dallas Cowboys team with Dak Prescott? So that's what I'm going to look for. They are the best equipped to stop Dallas if Dallas and Mike McCarthy do not stop themselves. So I'm not willing to crown them as back-to-back NFC East division winners, but they are certainly going to be in that position come mid-December.
Jonathan, you might not be ready to do it, but I'm ready to crown them as back-to-back division winners. Look, this team came out of nowhere in 2020 to win this division. I don't think anyone was giving them a chance going into the season, and now they've built this defense that you can kind of build your whole entire team around, and that a defense that automatically makes them a contender no matter who the quarterback is. And you look at the rest of the rosters in the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles are in total disarray. The jury's still out on Daniel Jones. He still has a turnover problem, which isn't good when you're going up against a defense like Washington's twice a year. And who knows what's going on in Dallas. They could be a disaster next year. They could be good. They just seem to be all over the place. Somehow Washington has become the model of consistency in that division. And so obviously the big decision here for Washington this offseason is who they get at quarterback. And if they find someone who is efficient, someone who's good, they don't even have to be great. That defense is so good that you have a smart quarterback in there who doesn't turn the ball over. There's no reason this team can't repeat as division champion.
And there has not been a repeat division champion in this division since 2003. 2004. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Stay right there because we have a stop in the Windy City coming up with our team previews continuing. And of course, you can hear more from the NFL via the Pick Six podcast. Will Brinson, John Breach, Ryan Wilson, all going over what's going on. The latest episode, which dropped Friday morning, a spicy mailbag edition, thanks to the rumors that Russell Wilson may be about to walk out on Seattle. Check it out wherever you get your preferred audio.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.